Hello again. I'm Lainey Renee with Quaint and Cozy KC, and I've been thinking about it, and I feel like I've made videos about it and I've blogged about it, all this stuff. But what is the Quaint and Cozy KC lifestyle? What does it mean to me? And I feel like it's something that is always evolving because when I first started this website back in 2022, like the end of 2022, I had just finished my master's degree and I was like, okay, I need something to look forward to, right? Anytime you do like a major milestone, you always going to be like, okay, well, what's next, right? People ask me, what are you going to do next? I'm like, you know what? I like the blog, Quaint and Cozy KC, like two blogs came into mind, but the first one that I did was Quaint and Cozy KC. And I was like, you know what? Let's do that. And then let's eventually turn it into a podcast, soon. And that's what I ended up doing back in 2023. Here comes the podcast. So what is it to me right now in 2025 with everything going on? It's something that's, it's simple and it's comfort and it's tea shops and bookstores and coffee houses and cozy musical playlists and day trips, vacations, museums, farmers markets. And I know a lot of the major ones are closed, but there are some, and I'll do a video about them that are still open, during the cold weather months. So, never fear. You can still do all your little quaint farmers market things. Like, don't pack away those canvas bags just yet. Also, flea markets, crafting classes, any kind of class that you're taking, right? Any kind of, cooking or, crafting class, anything like that. It's historical lectures, doing that. It's also local music venues and it's supporting local businesses. Like that to me is the Quaint and Cozy KC lifestyle. It's kind of like, I always feel like I'm someone's auntie, right? I'm kind of like an auntie talking about all of her adventures. And instead of trapping people at parties and whatever and get-togethers, I get to just get on a podcast and talk about it. Or I get to write write about it as well. Like I'm like Aunt Lainey and I get to do all these things. And that's what the lifestyle is. And what I love about TikTok and social media, my favorite parts of social media is seeing all these cozy people kind of come together and find community. And I know sometimes when you are in like a smaller market or a mid-sized market, you think you're looking at those people that are in London and New York and Los Angeles and Dallas, and you're thinking Houston, you're like, man, Chicago, those people, I don't have any of that stuff where I live. And I want to kind of challenge you that even if you don't have it in your town, I bet you have it in your county. So there's probably a way for you to kind of experience this. Now, granted, you might not be able to just jump in your car and just go 15 minutes and do that, but it might be that once a month you go and you kind of do a trip to see, do a museum trip and go hit a coffee shop or something like that, or a small cafe for lunch. And that's like your, once a month kind of treat to yourself. Maybe you go hit up a tea shop, or as I talked about, or like a bookstore, something like that. There might be like an author in town that might be at a bookstore. You can go listen to that. Sometimes, where we live, we might not have the luxury or the budget to do things every week. But what if you can do something once a month? Maybe you can do something once a month for under $40. Or, something like sometimes things are like if they're not in your city or town, they're in your county. If they're not in your county, they're somewhere in your state. So you might have to drive a little bit longer, or you might talk about, hey, what if I started my own book club, right? I guess I forgot to mention book clubs when I was doing my list, but maybe the public library that's in your town can put something on. Maybe you can kind of start a group that meets there on the weekends. You can start like a poetry group, something like that. People can meet in person, and then when you get everything together, maybe you can also add like an online component to it as well, right? The sky really is the limit. So these days in 2025, you really are not limited by geography. And maybe if you're not like in New York, you don't have the same views if you are in the middle of like Western Kansas, but there are still libraries where you're at. There's still beautiful views. They just look differently. Like something that, as someone who has lived on both coasts and in New Mexico and Minnesota and Pennsylvania, all the places, I realized I'm like, I'm taking a lot of stuff for granted because yes, where I live in Kansas City, I don't have an ocean view. I don't have a mountain view, but the prairie view that I have, the forest view that I have, very beautiful. Like there's some beautiful state parks here. There are some beautiful parks here in general. Lots of beautiful flower gardens, all the things. Quaint and Cozy isn't about where you live necessarily. It's about the state of mind. That's just kind of like my opinion. And if you are lucky enough to live in a very scenic place, that a tourist destination, good for you. But if you're not, in the sense of like, that not all is lost, There are beautiful views of lakes and rivers and, forests and beautiful gardens that you can see as well. So just kind of, once you start to really embrace where you live, and I know it's hard because I was someone that took me a long time to embrace being back here, but once I started to do it, I just noticed all this joy coming from, like, oh my gosh, I have so much joy. And you never could have told me in 2012 when I moved back here from New England that I'd find this much joy again and really appreciate where I live. And I have a dear friend who's passed on. He used to tell me, listen, you got to find the good in your hometown, no matter what it is. You got to root for the hometown team, and you got to be, find the good in wherever you live, if that's possible, right? So that is my kind of Quaint and Cozy Casey, Aunt Lainey soapbox moment for today. So thanks you guys for, watching this video. You can like and subscribe and find me, everywhere that, you've got the capacity. Now I'm getting all awkward. You've got the capacity to do so. I am Quaint and Cozy Casey. You can just throw a Google search and you can find me just about everywhere. Okay, everyone, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.